I got a little something new that I wanted to, maybe this actually isn't new. I think I introduced you guys to this at the beginning of the year. I'll tell you that I've been working on a signature bait with Z-Man and a signature shaky head. One thing I've learned, all right? So I know a lot of times, I'll put a filler out on whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or even here on YouTube, just kind of trying to get video ideas, seeing what you guys are struggling with, what you may want to know, because I do want to know what you're struggling with so I can kind of direct my content that way. Obviously I do tip videos and the vlogs and so forth, but I think it seems like I get the most interaction on tip videos. So I'm always looking to hear what you want to hear about concerning tips. And I get myself in a little trouble because if the truth be told, there's really only, when it comes to fishing lures and techniques, I'm a very simple angler. And I don't waste time with stuff that may or may not catch a fish, and I don't waste time with stuff that's frustrating for me. Like if I don't have confidence in a bait, I don't fish it. I don't even want to fish it. When I pick up a rod, I want to have the max amount of confidence in what I'm doing and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I use baits that I like, and I learn new ways to fish those few baits. So I'm saying all that to say this. One gap that I felt like we always had in our product line was like a good shaky head, right? There's a lot of shaky heads out there, but for as being mass produced, like a shaky head that you could get anywhere, you could pick up at any tackle shop. I don't think there's really a lot of options out there on a really good one. So I kind of pushed, like of all the things that I could have pushed for, fancy swim baits, big top waters, like all this cool stuff. In my mind, I want to be able to talk about, I want to be able to show you and teach about the stuff that I do best. Like you would never find Deion Sanders doing a video on how to be a good quarterback, right? That's just like I wouldn't do a video on how to throw glide baits. I don't throw glide baits. I can't even tell you that I ever even threw one. Boy, I done fished shaky head a whole bunch in my life. I caught a lot of fish on it. So earlier this year, if you follow me in it at all, you know that I was working on this guy right here. I forget what we call it, the SMH, shaking my head is the name of this shaky head that I worked on. And it's got a unique shape to the head. It's got a fairly light wire hook. I would say, I think about hook sizes in poundage. I would say this is max 15-pound test would be pushing it, but for sure a 6 to 12-pound test line hook. I've always liked with Elastec especially, I prefer the little metal keeper. That works best with elastic. A real nice sharp keeper. I'm not sure if you can see that now. The little welded keeper. That works best. That's worked for everything from swim baits to creature baits. Those really sharp keepers seem to do the deal. I experimented with line ties with, I guess this would be called a horizontal or flat line tie versus a vertical line tie. From what I could tell, it seemed like the vertical, like straight on line tie like this, seemed to work best. I tried both for a little while, and it seemed like I had a little more confidence in the one that was this way. It felt like I hung up a little bit more, maybe grabbed, even like when I was fishing a bottom that had a little grass in it or something like that. I feel like it caught more slime on the one that was, horizontal, I guess you would say. So we designed this shaky head around what we needed in a soft plastic. I wanted to have the two elements. I wanted to have the soft plastic and the jig head. So that's the other thing that, we got a lot of soft plastics to use, but one gap that we really just didn't have was a good old solid worm. Like people underestimate the power of a 6 to 7 inch straight tail worm. I can think of 15 ways I could fish this bait right off the bat. Just a good old worm, just like that. Nothing fancy, a straight tail. If you want to get fancy, you get a little funky on the taper. Give it some appeal right here. Give it that Coke bottle shape down here and towards the end of it. But a good worm, not a stick bait, not TRD, not God forbid I say a Cinco shaped worm, because we know that that changed the game. Just a good shaped worm is what I wanted to follow up to pair up with my jig head. So here it is. I don't think we come up with a name for my worm yet. When I was pondering, I kind of thought about, I didn't know. I guess I probably can't do a video with a hook in my mouth, but I didn't know if I wanted to do like a 7-inch worm or if I wanted to do a 6-inch worm. And I'm thinking, I'm not really even sure what we settled on. Maybe it was like 6 or 6 1/4 is what we settled in on. Had to go through the, obviously we always have to start off with colors. I think we're gonna have 8 to 10 colors in this guy. The reason I wanted just a good straight up worm, obviously the first thing we wanted to do was have a good worm to pair with the jig head. And this is what we came up with. I guess we'll call it the SMH worms. I don't know if that's what we'll call it or not. I really don't care as long as the shape and it works right. But there's just so many situations that you could use a bait like that. I mean, growing up on a clear body, like a clear reservoir, rivers, there's really not many situations where you couldn't use something like this and catch a bunch of fish. Obviously, it was made. In my mind, the number one priority when I was kind of thinking about this bait was shaky head. Obviously, I mean, that's just right off the bat. Texas red shaky head. A last tech would be great for it. Usually a shaky head, especially in the pre-spawn in the spring, you catch a lot of fish on it, so you want something that'll last a long time. Wouldn't it be nice, instead of having 20 bags when they're on a shaky head, to have 1 bag of plastics for the day? You'll be able to use this a bunch of times, glue it up to the top. Just sometimes they might not want a fatties or a zinkers, a big TRD, and I want something like this. And so that's why I got this guy, all right? Secondly, for flipping, the video you saw at the Potomac River, I was actually using this guy as a prototype. That plum purplish looking worm that I was using, it was this guy. Didn't really say much about it. I wasn't sure if I was free to go ahead and give the go ahead on this yet. But that was this bait. A 6-inch straight tail worm on a Texas rig. You also can Nico rig. I think I had it actually rigged up like that. Nico rig is a fancy way of saying wacky rig with a nail weight in the end of it. All right. So you'll be able to take this worm and wacky rig with it too. You'll be able to take this worm and drop shot. It'd be a good 6-inch drop shot. It's got enough taper that you can see the tail here. It's got, like, I can't even get it to be still. It's got a lot of taper down here on the bottom part of the tail. So it's gonna be good for a drop shot, a bigger drop shot. It's gonna be good on Tennessee River ledges. It's big enough for that kind of stuff. But it's got enough finesse to put it on a shaky head. You can put it on Nico rig, Carolina rig. You can cut it down. Let's try that. You can actually cut it down like I did with the finesse worms on a couple videos ago and use it for a Ned rig. I mean, you got a really, really sexy tail here, so you could cut that down and use it for a Ned rig too. All right, so this is what something that we worked on a lot was the shape, the taper of the plastic. That's basically what's going to give it all this lifelike, lazy action, lifelike action. You can see it starts pretty thick, pretty much like a normal. Let's just say the OG that started it all with straight tail worms, let's just be honest, was a zoom trick worm. Okay, we said it, all right, that's out there. So we started out with that kind of diameter up here at the top, and then we slowly tapered it down to something, very, very skinny. So basically this is gonna have a lot of action back here, especially with the Lastec. You can have this shape all you want in any kind of other worm, but the fact that this worm is made out of Lastec is gonna change everything for the better. You're gonna get more action. You can get better hookup ratio. It's just, and when I say better action, I don't always mean more. It's just going to be that real floaty, lifeless, like it's just going to look more realistic in the water. Anytime I say better action, everybody think they're going to put it down in the water and see the thing go crazy. It's not necessarily that. It's just going to be real light and airy in the water. So the fact that it's Lastec is going to be a big advantage. The thing that most people have problems with is hook penetration with light line and the shaky head. And a lot of times what that comes from, I talked about this a little bit when I introduced this to you guys a long time ago. One of the problems is the head shape has a lot to do with your hookup ratio. When you have a good, I guess the word is ergonomic, when you have a shape where it'll pop through the fish's mouth really good, you get a better hookup. You know, I don't want to, I guess I'm kind of calling out a company, but I mean, this is just the best example I know. There was a shaky head that come out that kind of revolutionized finesse fishing and shaky head fishing 20 years ago. It's called spot remover. It had a big old flat head on it, and you had a thing that you stuck your worm on, so you didn't have to rig your plastic up on it. I don't like those. I don't like shaky heads like that where they have the screw lock on the top. I like the shaky heads that I like a regular hook, no screw lock. That screw lock is doing nothing but causing a hookup problem for you because it's basically a brush guard. It's a small brush guard. But that spot remover had that flat head on it. And it was okay if you had like some fairly big line and stiffer rod. But the moment that you had a little bit softer rod for lighter line, it created problems. Because basically with that flat face, when the fish's mouth would grab over that face, you never could get the face of that shaky head to pop through the fish's mouth so you could get hook penetration. So a lot of times you would reel down on him, set the hook, you'd pull him 10 foot, and then the fish would jump and come off. Or you pull him 20 foot, you never see him, and he just come off. And you say, dang, dude, what's going on? It was that flat head. You need something that when you go to set the hook, that there's not a lot of metal there preventing his mouth from popping open and that hook grabbing top of his head. This jig head is gonna grab him. I'm not gonna say every time, because you're still gonna lose some fish, but it's gonna grab him a whole bunch. I promise you, just because of the head design and the angle of the line tie and just everything's working together to get this part of the jig head. You got a lot of times you got to get that to come out of his lips to get good hook penetration. Not every time, but I promise you, if this part ever gets past his lips, you're gonna hook up. It doesn't have to all the time. Sometimes he just got it down his goo goggle and you're just gonna hook him up, and that's just all it is to it. But there's certain times where he's just got it just enough to where if you don't pop that through, when you set the hook, he's just got his mouth clamped down on the lid. That's always bad. So make sure you look out for this guy. I think we're gonna launch it sometime early in 22. Be looking for it. I'll kind of keep you posted on what we're gonna call the worms, but I know the head's gonna be called the SMH, shaking my head. All right.
Charge on its last light.